Alright, so I'm back again with another look at some of my vinyl collection, and I'm still not in the corner I originally intended to record all these videos on. The living room's still a mess from the storage unit stuff. This spring I'll probably get it done, and I'll go back to some of my plans that I had for the channel, and going over my vinyl collection. But today, I figured it's been long enough. I go over my King Crimson albums. So, sorry if it's a little shaky. We'll go over everything in my King Crimson vinyl collection. Late last year, I ordered this off eBay. It is actually a single, so it has Sleepless and then the instrumental versions of it. And it says Sleepless, so I'm gonna guess it's just mixed. Yeah, it looks like there's the instrumental mix and then a dance mix and then the regular one. I haven't listened to this particular copy yet, just because I haven't had time between stuff, and also my living room's a mess along with my vinyl setup out there. So that's neat. Although that is like a standard vinyl size, it is still a single and it runs at the 33 speed instead of like the 45 speeds that the singles usually work at. I also have this little single that I picked up from the Beat era. It's the single for Heartbeat. On one side is Heartbeat and the other side is Requiem from the album Beat. It's pretty nice. I got this one off of eBay also. I didn't peel the price sticker they forgot to take off. I wish I paid only $3 for it. I paid a little more than that, but not too much. That's as far as what it goes for singles that I have on vinyl. So about a year or two ago, I picked up all of the 80s King Crimsons from a dude on OfferUp for about $20 total. It was really cool because he had them all in pristine conditions. So my two favorite King Crimson lineups at the moment are both the original lineup in 1969 with the debut album, and then the 80s lineup, which had Discipline, Three of a Perfect Pair, and then Beat. Unfortunately, though, while I went to play this, it slipped out of my hand and it dented onto my coffee table at the time. So I believe it's side B of this is kind of messed up on one or two of the songs. I got really annoyed by that because they were all three in pristine condition. They were perfect, and then it just slipped out of my hand. The one dude who actually toured with Talking Heads worked on these three albums, and they sometimes are referred to as the King Crimson Four, or the fourth major lineup, or fourth era. So if I ever talk about them in any of my videos, I'll address these three albums and that lineup as King Crimson 4. Although I damaged the copy of Beat that I got, I did pick up at my local record store, Sonic Ascension Records, this, which is a promotional release that's not for resale. I mean, obviously I bought it, and nobody cares if it's for resale at this point. But this pressing, it's pretty much the same mix. It's just a different pressing. It was released as a promotional before the album came out. And since it's a different variation of it, I was completely fine with getting it and just keeping both. Now, I'm just going out of order when I go through these, partially because they're not organized in the box at the moment. But the first and my favorite King Crimson album, In the Court of the Crimson King, An Observation by King Crimson, I also picked up. Paid $20 for this release. I don't know exactly the pressing. I'm not gonna lie. I have not learned exactly how to look up like first pressings, second pressings. This was one of the older ones through Atlantic Records. And as you can see on the front, there's the iconic 21st Century Schizoid Man. Many people know this just by the cover of the album. There's no real signification of what band it is or any names of the album right on the front. It's all pretty much on the side. One more thing I want to mention about this before I go into the second album is the person that created this was a computer programmer, the artwork that is, and unfortunately he passed away before the album release, so we never got to see how iconic his artwork would become. It's a kind of sad fact, and I'm kind of curious if he would have continued to make artwork for the band as they went onward through the 70s. So the first album in the 70s, and I have two copies of because one copy was beat up and I got it for relatively cheap. They do not have the same lineup in this one as they did in the original lineup for the first album. Many of those people would go on to be members of prog groups outside of King Crimson and very successful, like Greg Lake and Palmer and whatnot. So the second one, it's a different lineup. I still like it. Personally, I don't like the track Cat Food. It just doesn't do anything for me. Pictures of a City is probably my favorite track from this album. I'll eventually go over all of these with more details in time. Then I did pick up another issue of it that's in better condition. And as we move on through their 70s releases, we have Lizard. I really like kind of the artwork of this and how they stick to I guess like a medieval fantasy event. The music really matches the artwork on the album. I kind of like the whole design in general. While that's out, I might as well mention I'm going to show something else relevant to this and another album that I have. Now, this might not be recognizable because it looks like they've used a few different styles of artwork throughout the years. There's more of like a stellar or cosmic look for the artwork on this on most releases, so you might not recognize it. Again, there was not a consistent lineup for the band at this point either. So between the first album and then all of these albums up until the 80s, they had very mixed lineups. Then we have an album I've listened to a bit recently, Lark's Tongue and Aspic, that has part 1 of Lark's Tongue and Aspic on this, and also part 2 at the end. My favorite track from this, I believe, is Book of Saturday at the moment, at least. Some of my tastes and opinions on how I feel about these albums change with my mood and what I'm feeling at the time. Easy Money is also a track that I believe sticks out from. I've definitely seen the album artwork from this in places where people don't know what it is, and it's rather iconic. And then my last studio album that I have from them, also from the 70s era, Starless and Bible Black. I like the simplicity of this artwork. I don't have too much I want to say about this album right now. Eventually, I do plan to go over all of these albums and tell my opinion. That pretty much covers all of the releases I have on vinyl for studio albums. Now, I do have 2 live albums. I have Earthbound, which was released in the 70s. I don't know too much details about this, I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to pretend I do. But I'll probably look into it more whenever I go to cover this album again. And my last album is USA, which is another live album. These both came out on streaming services again recently, so they are available easily to listen to if you're interested. I'm pretty certain they're on every major platform. I did plan on getting every album released before their 90s lineup and their 90s album, Thrack, but unfortunately I've not found a copy of Red in good condition recently at all. I have other things going on, so I'm not going to buy one online, and one has not come into any local record stores or anything in my area. But I plan to pick that up once I get the chance, and I'll have every album up until the 90s, excluding some of those odd live performance releases, which didn't always come out in the 70s, I believe. There's plenty of live King Crimson albums for out there. If you have any interest or if you enjoy any of these studio albums, I 100% suggest listening to some of these performances and see how you feel about it. One other thing I want to say before I go is I want to give a shout out to my local record store, which helped me get most of these. They're called Sonic Ascension Records in Montoursville, PA. And Lee, the owner, is a pretty nice guy. If you are in the region and you're looking for albums, I definitely suggest stopping in there and seeing what he has in stock at the moment and checking it out. I forgot one thing that I wanted to put in this video before I ended it. So recently at that record store I mentioned, I picked up what's known as a mini LP. So in Japan, what they did was release CDs in pretty much a gatefold that's similar to that of vinyl releases. Here's Lark's Tongue and Aspic. They also have the CD in like a little holder that's not too different from like a vinyl holder that we'd find inside of it, along with booklets that would be similar to those that you would find in the original vinyl release. So there's Lark's Tongue and Aspic. Let me grab my release to compare. Now, it doesn't match the exact artwork as the release I have. There are a few different ones, and unfortunately I'm missing the little spine or the obi strip. For those that don't know, it was common in Japan for them to release CDs and stuff with the same kind of artwork and release as in their original country, such as Japan or the US. And what they would do was have a little strip on the side which would have everything in the Japanese language. So that way they could read it, but they could retain all the artwork and everything as it was intended originally. I really think that's a neat thing. I thought I'd just mention it before I end this video. I have that, and then I also got a release of Lizard. Now, this one is not made of the same material, and there's more stuff of this book. Unfortunately, there is not the little strip with this one either. I have ripped both of these to FLAC. I plan to listen to them a little bit. They also support HD CD, which is something I might cover if I ever find a player. Unfortunately, there's no players of that I've seen in my area, and what I plan on possibly doing is getting a Nuon, which those that don't know what that is, I'll go over that if I get it. But I found a Nuon unit that also supports HD CDs. So if I ever get a hold of that, expect me to do a video on it. If not, I just hope you enjoyed this little look at my collection, and I hope to see you again soon. Bye.